The morning of December 6, 1917, began like any other in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Dock workers headed to their shifts, children prepared for school, and ships moved through the busy harbor. By 9:05 a.m., half the city would be gone, and over 2,000 people would be dead. Halifax in 1917 was the beating heart of Canada's war effort. The harbor served as the primary staging area for Allied convoys bound for Europe. Ships loaded with grain, munitions, and soldiers departed regularly for the battlefields of World War I. The city's population had swollen to nearly 50,000 people, including military personnel, dock workers, and their families who had flocked to this vital port. That December morning, two ships were making their way through the Narrows, the slim channel connecting Halifax's inner and outer harbors. The first was the Mont Blanc, a French cargo vessel that had just arrived from New York. Captain Aimé Lemedec commanded this 3,121-ton ship. But what made the Mont Blanc truly dangerous wasn't its size, it was what lay in its holds. The Mont Blanc was a floating arsenal. In its cargo holds sat 2,925 tons of high explosives, 2,300 tons of picric acid, 200 tons of TNT, 35 tons of benzol, and 246 tons of gun cotton. On deck, hundreds of barrels of benzol, a highly flammable fuel, were stacked like a deadly house of cards. The ship was essentially a massive bomb waiting for a spark. The second vessel was the Emo, a Norwegian steamship chartered by the Commission for Relief in Belgium. At 5,043 tons, the Emo was considerably larger than the Mont Blanc and was bound for New York to collect relief supplies for war-torn Belgium. Captain Håkon From commanded the vessel, which should have been a routine cargo run. Maritime traffic in Halifax Harbour followed strict rules. Ships entering the harbor stayed to the starboard side, while departing vessels kept to the port side. These weren't suggestions, they were regulations designed to prevent exactly what was about to happen. The trouble began around 8:45 a.m. The Mont Blanc was heading into the harbor on its proper starboard side when it encountered the Emo coming out on the wrong side of the channel. The Emo should have been on its port side, but it had been delayed overnight and was now rushing to catch up on lost time. Both ships spotted each other and began a deadly dance of miscommunication. The Mont Blanc signaled one blast on its whistle, indicating it would maintain course and pass port to port. The Emo responded with two blasts, signaling it intended to cross to starboard. This was wrong. The Emo was already on the wrong side of the channel and was now signaling to move even further into oncoming traffic. Captain Lemedec on the Mont Blanc was horrified. He knew exactly what his ship was carrying and understood the catastrophic consequences of any collision. He ordered his engines full reverse and began turning hard to port, desperately trying to avoid the approaching Norwegian vessel. The Emo's Captain From seemed oblivious to the danger. His ship continued forward, engines at full ahead. At 8:45 a.m., the inevitable happened. The Emo's bow, reinforced for icebreaking, sliced into the Mont Blanc's starboard side like a massive knife. The collision itself might have been survivable under normal circumstances. Ships had collided before in busy harbors. But the Mont Blanc wasn't carrying normal cargo. The impact ruptured barrels of benzol on deck, and the highly flammable liquid began spreading across the ship. Then came the sparks from the grinding metal. Fire erupted instantly across the Mont Blanc's deck. Captain Lemedec and his crew knew they had perhaps minutes before the flames reached the explosives cargo below. They abandoned ship immediately, rowing frantically toward the Dartmouth shore while screaming warnings in French to anyone who would listen. The burning Mont Blanc drifted toward Halifax's Pier 6 in the Richmond district, one of the city's busiest industrial areas. Hundreds of people gathered along the waterfront to watch the spectacular fire. They had no idea they were witnessing the prelude to one of history's most devastating explosions. For 20 minutes, the Mont Blanc burned as crowds gathered to watch the unusual sight. Firefighters raced to the scene, and the fire department's Patricia was among the first responders. Children pressed their faces against school windows. Office workers stepped outside for a better view. Nobody understood what was about to happen. At 9:04 and 35 seconds a.m., the fire reached the Mont Blanc's cargo holds. The explosion was beyond comprehension. The blast released energy equivalent to roughly 2.9 kilotons of TNT, making it the largest man-made explosion in history until the atomic bomb. The Mont Blanc was completely vaporized. Its anchor shank, weighing over half a ton, was hurled 2 miles away where it embedded in the ground. A piece of the ship's gun was found 3 miles from the explosion site. The blast created a mushroom cloud that rose over a mile into the sky. The explosion was heard in Prince Edward Island 180 miles away. Windows shattered in Truro, 60 miles distant. The shock wave was so powerful that it registered on seismologies as far away as Australia. In Halifax, the destruction was absolute. The blast flattened everything within a half-mile radius. The Richmond district, home to thousands of working-class families, was completely obliterated. Entire city blocks vanished in an instant. The explosion hurled chunks of metal, wood, and debris through the air like massive projectiles. The human toll was staggering. Over 2,000 people died instantly or from their injuries in the following days. Another 9,000 were wounded. The explosion created a unique and horrific type of injury. Hundreds of people suffered severe eye damage from glass shards when they rushed to windows to see the burning ship. The explosion triggered a tsunami that swept through the harbor, reaching heights of 60 feet above the high water mark. The wave carried away what the blast had left standing and deposited the remains of ships and buildings far inland. But nature wasn't finished with Halifax. Within hours of the explosion, a blizzard struck the devastated city. Snow began falling on the ruins, making rescue efforts nearly impossible and adding deadly cold to the survivors' suffering. The response to the disaster became a defining moment in Canadian history. Help poured in from across North America, but the most significant aid came from an unexpected source, Massachusetts. The state government immediately dispatched a relief train loaded with medical supplies, doctors, and emergency workers. This gesture of compassion forged a bond between Halifax and Massachusetts that continues today. Every Christmas, Halifax sends a giant Christmas tree to Boston as a thank you for that crucial assistance. The relief efforts were massive and well coordinated for the time. Temporary shelters housed thousands of homeless survivors. Medical teams worked around the clock treating the injured. The Canadian government provided substantial financial assistance for rebuilding. The legal aftermath was complex and contentious. Initially, the Mont Blanc's pilot, Francis Mackey, was charged with manslaughter and criminal negligence. However, the charges were eventually dropped when investigations revealed that both ships bore responsibility for the collision. The ultimate legal ruling found both vessels equally at fault for the disaster. The explosion led to significant changes in maritime safety regulations. Harbor traffic control became much more stringent, and new procedures were implemented for transporting dangerous cargo through busy ports. The disaster served as a stark reminder of the risks involved in wartime shipping. The reconstruction of Halifax took years. The government established the Halifax Relief Commission, which oversaw rebuilding efforts and provided ongoing support to survivors and families of victims. The commission constructed the Hydrostone District, a planned community built with a distinctive concrete block material that gave the area its name. Today, memorials throughout Halifax commemorate the disaster and its victims. The Halifax Explosion Memorial Bell Tower stands in Fort Needham Memorial Park, overlooking the site where the Mont Blanc exploded. Every year on December 6th, ceremonies remember those who died and celebrate the resilience of those who survived. The explosion remains one of history's most powerful reminders of how quickly tragedy can strike. In just 20 minutes, a routine harbor accident transformed into a catastrophe that changed a city forever. The disaster demonstrated both the devastating potential of modern warfare's tools and the remarkable capacity of communities to come together in times of crisis.